My name is Karen Matthews, and I am representing Weyburn Free Methodist Church. Today's reading is from Judges, chapters 14 to 17. I will be reading from the Amplified Version of the Bible. Samson went down to Timnah, and at Timnah saw one of the daughters of the Philistines. And he came up and told his father and mother, "I saw one of the daughters of the Philistines at Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife." But his father and mother said to him, "Is there not a woman among the daughters of your kinsmen or among all our people that you must go to take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines?" And Samson said to his father, "Get her for me, for she is all right in my eyes." His father and mother did not know that it was of the Lord, and that he sought an occasion for assailing the Philistines. At that time, the Philistines had dominion over Israel. Then Samson and his father and mother went down to Timnah and came to the vineyards of Timnah. And behold, a young lion roared against him. And the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he tore the lion as he would have torn a kid. And he had nothing in his hand, but he did not tell his father or mother what he had done. And he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. And after a while he returned to take her, and he turned aside to see the body of the lion, and behold, a swarm of bees and honey were in the body of the lion. And he scraped some of the honey out into his hands and went along eating. And he came to his father and mother and gave them some, and they ate it. But he did not tell them he had taken the honey from the body of the lion. His father went down to the woman, and Samson made a feast there, for that was the customary thing for young men to do. And when the people saw him, they brought 30 companions to be with him. And Samson said to them, "I will now put forth a riddle to you. If you can tell me what it is within the 7 days of the feast and find it out, then I will give you 30 linen undergarments and 30 changes of raiment. But if you cannot declare it to me, then shall you give me 30 linen undergarments and 30 changes of festive, costly raiment." And they said to him, "Put forth your riddle that we may hear it." And he said to them, "Out of the eater came forth food, and out of the strong came forth sweetness." And they could not solve the riddle in 3 days. And on the 7th day they said to Samson's wife, "Entice your husband to declare to us the riddle, lest we burn you and your father's household with fire. Have you invited us to make us poor? Is this not true?" And Samson's wife wept before him and said, "You only hate me. You do not love me. You have put forth a riddle to my countrymen and have not told the answer to me." And he said to her, "Behold, I have not told my father or mother, and shall I tell you?" And Samson's wife wept before him the 7 days their feast lasted. And on the 7th day he told her, because she pressed him with entreaties. And then she told the riddle to her countrymen. And the men of the city said to Samson on the 7th day before sundown, "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" And he said to them, "If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle." And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon and slew 30 men of them, and took their apparel as spoil, and gave the changes of garments to those who explained the riddle. And his anger was kindled, and he went up to his father's house. But Samson's wife was given to his companion, who was his best friend. But some days later, in the time of wheat harvest, Samson went to visit his wife, taking along a kid as a token of reconciliation. And he said, "I will go on to my wife in the inner chamber." But her father would not allow him to go in. And her father said, "I truly thought you utterly hated her, so I gave her to your companion. Is her younger sister not fairer than she? Take her, I pray you, instead. And Samson said of them, This time shall I be blameless as regards the Philistines, though I do them evil. So Samson went and caught 300 foxes or jackals and took torches, and turning the fox's tail to tail, he put a torch between each pair of tails. And when he had set the torches ablaze, he let the foxes go into the standing grain of the Philistines, and he burned up the shocks and the standing grain along with all the orchards. Then the Philistines said, Who has done this? And they were told, Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he, the Timnite, has taken Samson's wife and has given her to his companion. And the Philistines came up and burned her and her father with fire. And Samson said to them, If this is the way you act, surely I will take revenge on you, and after that I will quit. And he smote them hip and thigh unsparingly, a great slaughter, and he went down and dwelt in the cleft of the rock of Etam. Then the Philistines came up and encamped in Judah and spread themselves in Lehi. And the men of Judah said, Why have you come up against us? And they answered, We have come up to bind Samson, to do to him as he has done to us. Then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cleft of the rock Etam and said to Samson, Have you not known that the Philistines are rulers over us? What is this that you have done to us? He said to them, As they did to me, so have I done to them. And they said to him, We have come down to bind you, that we may deliver you into the hands of the Philistines. And Samson said to them, Swear to me that you will not fall upon me yourselves. And they said to him, No, we will bind you fast and give you into their hand, but surely we will not kill you. So they bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. And when he came to Lehi, the Philistines came shouting to meet him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon Samson, and the ropes on his arms became as flax that had caught fire, and his bonds melted off his hands. And he found a still moist jawbone of a donkey, and reached out and took it, and slew 1,000 men with it. And Samson said, With the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone of a donkey, I have slain 1,000 men. And when he stopped speaking, he cast the jawbone from his hand, and that place was called Ramath Lehi, the hill of the jawbone. Samson was very thirsty, and he prayed to the Lord and said, You have given this great deliverance by the hand of your servant, and now shall I die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised? And God split open the hollow place that was at Lehi, and water came out of it. And when he drank, his spirit returned, and he revived. Therefore the name of it was called En-Hakkore, the spring of him who prayed, which is at Lehi to this day. And Samson defended Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years. Then Samson went to Gaza and saw a harlot there and went in to her. The Gazites were told, Samson has come here. So they surrendered the place and lay in wait for him all night at the gate of the city. They were quiet all night, saying, In the morning, when it is light, we will kill him. But Samson lay until midnight, and then he arose and took hold of the doors of the city's gate and the 2 posts, and pulling them up, bar and all, he put them on his shoulders and carried them to the top of the hill that is before Hebron. After this, he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came to her and said to her, Entice him and see in what his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to subdue him. And we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver. And Delilah said to Samson, "Tell me, I pray you, wherein your great strength lies, and with what you might be bound to subdue you." And Samson said to her, "If they bind me with 7 fresh, strong gut strings, still moist, then shall I be weak and be like any other man." Then the Philistine lords brought to her 7 fresh, strong bowstrings, still moist, and she bound him with them. Now she had men lying in wait in an inner room, and she said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." And he broke the bowstrings as the string of tow breaks when it touches the fire. So the secret of his strength was not known. And Delilah said to Samson, "Behold, you have mocked me and told me lies. Now tell me, I pray you, how you might be bound." And he said to her, "If they bind me fast with new ropes that have not been used, then I shall become weak and be like any other man." So Delilah took new ropes and bound him with them and said to him, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." And the men lying in wait were in the inner room, but he snapped the ropes off his arms like sewing thread. And Delilah said to Samson, "Until now you have mocked me and told me lies. Tell me with what you might be bound." And he said to her, "If you weave the 7 braids of the hair of my head with the web." And she did so and fastened it with the pin and said to him, "The Philistines are upon us, Samson." And he awoke out of his sleep and went away with the pin of the weaver's beam and with the web. And she said to him, "How can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? You have mocked me these 3 times and have not told me in what your great strength lies." And when she pressed him day after day with her words and urged him, he was vexed to death. Then he told her all his mind and said to her, "A razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my birth. If I am shaved, then my strength will go from me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man." And when Delilah saw that he had told her all his mind, she went and called for the Philistine lord, saying, "Come up this once, for he has told me all he knows." Then the Philistine lords came up to her and brought the money in their hands. And she made Samson sleep upon her knees, and she called a man and caused him to shave off the 7 braids of his head. Then she began to torment Samson, and his strength went from him. She said, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." And he awoke out of his sleep and said, "I will go out as I have time after time and shake myself free." For Samson did not know that the Lord had departed from him. But the Philistines laid hold of him, bored out his eyes, and brought him down to Gaza, and bound him with 2 bronze fetters, and he ground at the mill in the prison. But the hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. Then the Philistine lords gathered together to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and to rejoice, for they said, "Our God has given Samson, our enemy, into our hands." And when the people saw Samson, they praised their God, for they said, "Our God has delivered into our hands our enemy, the ravager of our country, who has slain many of us." And when their hearts were merry, they said, "Call for Samson, that he may make sport for us." So they called blind Samson out of the prison, and he made sport before them. They made him stand between the pillars. And Samson said to the lad who held him by the hand, "Allow me to feel the pillars upon which the house rests, that I may lean against them." Now the house was full of men and women. All the Philistine princes were there, and on the roof were about 3,000 men and women who looked on while Samson made sport. Then Samson called to the Lord and said, "O Lord God, remember me, I pray you, and strengthen me, I pray you, only this once, O God, and let me have one vengeance upon the Philistines for both my eyes. And Samson laid hold of the 2 middle pillars by which the house was borne up, one with his right hand and the other with his left. And Samson cried, "Let me die with the Philistines." And he bowed himself mightily, and the house fell upon the princes and upon all the people that were in it. So the dead whom he slew at his death were more than they whom he slew in his life. Then his kinsmen and all the tribal family of his father came down, took his body and brought it up, and they buried him between Zorah and Eshtaol in the burial place of Manoah his father. He had judged Israel, that is, had defended the Israelites 20 years. There was a man of the hill country of Ephraim whose name was Micah, and he said to his mother, "The 1,100 shekels of silver that were taken from you, about which you cursed and also spoke about in my hearing, behold, I have the silver with me. I took it." And his mother said, "Blessed be you by the Lord, my son." He restored the 1,100 shekels of silver to his mother, and she said, "I had surely dedicated the silver to the Lord from my hand for my son to make a graven image and a molten image. Now, therefore, I will restore it to you." So when he restored the money to his mother, she took 200 pieces of silver and gave them to the silversmith, who made of it a graven image and a molten image, and they were in the house of Micah. And the man Micah had a house of gods, and he made an ephod and teraphim and dedicated one of his sons, who became his priest. In these days there was no king in Israel. Every man did what was right in his own eyes. And there was a young man in Bethlehem of Judah, of the family of Judah, who was a Levite, and he sojourned there. And the man departed from the town of Bethlehem in Judah to sojourn where he could find a place. And as he journeyed, he came to the hill country of Ephraim, to the house of Micah. And Micah said to him, "From where do you come?" And he said to him, "I am a Levite of Bethlehem and Judah, and I go to sojourn where I may find a place." And Micah said to him, "Dwell with me and be to me a father and a priest, and I will give you 10 pieces of silver each year, a suit of clothes, and your living." So the Levite went in. And the Levite was content to dwell with the man, and the young man was to Micah as one of his sons. And Micah consecrated the Levite, and the young man became his priest and was in the house of Micah. Then said Micah, "Now I know that the Lord will favor me, since I have a Levite to be my priest." The word of the Lord.